Lesson 14. Muladhara Chakra. Muladhara Chakra is the root chakra. It's the first chakra at the bottom of the spine. It literally is the root of our existence. Muladhara Chakra, you see described in the handout some of the specifics, the details. Each of the chakras is represented by an element that you see in Korean culture also: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The subtle element related to Muladhara Chakra is earth, solid matter, solidity, representing solidity. In the symbol of the chakra, you see a square, which is a representation of that earth element or the solidity. Earth is the final product of the condensation of energy, starting from energy to liquid, eventually to solid matter. Muladhara Chakra therefore stands at the foundation of our physical existence. You find in Muladhara Chakra, therefore, our most basic instincts, which is survival. Survival is something that, if you look at the number of people roaming the earth, that the human species is very good at. Located in this chakra are therefore basic sexuality. So I'm not talking about romanticism or what do you call it? Higher levels of love, romanticism, and I forgot the other word.
Intimacy?
Huh?
Intimacy?
No, yeah, that you can use that word too. I was looking for romance. Romance. The way that human beings rise above their instinctual sex is the way that animals have sex. It's purely designed for what? For procreation. Which means it is the way to ensure survival of the species. So if you dissect sexuality, that is the basic purpose of sex. We have elevated that, of course. We have brought it to the level of the heart and even to the level of spirituality. That is all possible. So with that we have transformed it. But the basic function really is the survival of the species, any species, all species. Fear is a function of Muladhara Chakra. What is fear? Just like sexuality, it's a vehicle of survival. Because fear warns us, is a signal that tells us there is danger. Fear is a function that is very widely misunderstood. And most people are in fact negatively influenced by fear, suffering from fear syndrome, anxiety, what have you, uncertainty, doubt, all forms of fear that dominate our daily lives without us even being aware of it. We constantly ask ourselves, what if? How about tomorrow? How about next year? How about... And without knowing it, we allow fear to not only dominate our lives, it determines how we think and how we decide, make decisions. And it very often leads us to not make decisions. Because what if? So it's paralyzed in many ways. The developmental stage of a human being in Muladhara Chakra is from birth to the age of 7. So that's a very important formative stage of a child. As educators know, or should know, most of them do know one way or another, do know, and parents also know, the most important that a child needs is safety, security, and stability. We talked about this before. Children that are lacking these kind of elements do not perform well, do not develop well towards adulthood. Children who lack these elements of safety, security, and stability, therefore portray behavior that is not desirable in society. And if we don't understand it, we will put them in a category of children that behave bad. Bad behavior you are not born with, but is triggered by insecurity. Those children are suffering from fear. And because they cannot express what they feel, they will act upon what they feel, which is often distorted behavior, also distorted sexual behavior. If you look at the worst sexual predators that we know throughout history, they were often, or almost without exception, themselves, especially in this period of development, subject to very traumatic experiences. Not necessarily sexual, often that is involved too, but severe neglect, abuse, verbal, emotional, physical, and even eventually sexual abuse. Horribly horrible experiences in their childhood that have led to their distorted behavior later on. So it's very important to understand how the chakra functions, and the importance, of course, again, of sattva. So the subtle element is earth. The subtle vehicle of action is excretion. Now when you talk about excretion, you think about passing stool in the toilet, which is definitely a function of Muladhara Chakra, but this involves all forms of excretion. So that is excretion in the form of sweating, that is excretion in the form of urinating, passing stool, also giving birth. When you're pregnant for 9 months and it's time for the baby to come out, apana prana is being generated in large amounts, which then triggers the process that pushes the baby out of the womb. It's a function of Muladhara Chakra. And the excretion of all the hormones that we that are being produced by all the various glands that are spread out throughout the body. If there is great instability in Muladhara Chakra, it can go both ways. Either you have hyperactivity which is, for example, people who suffer fear, they start to excrete sweat, but that is not normal sweat. Because fear has a very particular smell. The animals know that. Animals, when they smell fear, they see you as a potential prey, as a potential victim. Dogs always smell first. If they smell fear, it is possible that they actually bite, even though they've never bitten anybody before. Just it triggers that predator instinct in them. When they smell fear, they might be triggered to attack, to catch the prey. Fear sweat smells bad. So it's very distinct from sweat that you normally throughout the day excrete, or when you sweat because of exercising. When children are suffering from fear, from instability, insecurity, they often wet their bed. Or when I was in kindergarten, there was a boy that just while sitting on his chair while we were having class, he would suddenly loosen his bladder and just it would just from the chair it would then splash onto the floor, and he just couldn't help it. But coming from a very unstable family. In the past, when I wrote this handout, you had every day in the news you had these riots going on in the Gaza Strip in the West Bank, in the Middle East, and what you typically see is young boys, especially young boys, teenagers, that throw stones and are very excited. But then the moment that they are caught by the security forces, they're full of fear. And what you very often saw was in those images where boys were caught and then led away to be transported to detention facilities, they were so scared of the treatment that they would receive, which they probably heard from nephews, brothers, other friends that had been caught before. They were so fearful of the treatment that they would receive that you saw the wet stains in their pants. They had relieved themselves spontaneously, involuntarily. What happens there, because excretion is a function of Muladhara Chakra, while Muladhara Chakra is also the location of fear, the terrible fear that they are suddenly struck with causes an explosion of apana prana to happen, leading not only to fear sweat, but in the extreme situations, we relieve ourselves spontaneously, uncontrollably. Not only urine, but also defecation. So it's all connected with each other, it's all related to each other. Something you probably never thought of this way, but very interesting. You see also that the subtle organ of perception, the Jnanendriya, is smell, the smell function. Smell function is very underappreciated. We hardly ever pay attention to the importance of smell. Let me give you an example to make clear what I'm trying to convey here. Have you ever felt very strongly attracted to a person based on personality, based on appearance, a very pretty girl or a very handsome guy, and you felt very strongly attracted, only to come close and find that that person's smell does not match with you. You recognize that? The person that at first appeared to be very attractive and an object of desire, whom you hope to be with, suddenly becomes an object of revulsion, if you pay attention. But there are people who dismiss the smell function and pursue a relationship with that person anyway, regardless of the smell, which is a recipe for failure later on in the relationship, because if the smell does not match with you, there will never be harmony in that relationship. The opposite is also true. A person who at first sight doesn't seem attractive at all, doesn't seem to be an object of interest at all, and then in passing you get a whiff of that person's smell and you can feel strongly attracted to that person because it's a smell that matches with you. This is very personal because the same smell that attracts you can cause revulsion in another person. So pay attention to smell, what you smell. Actually, in fact, subconsciously, smell has such a great influence on us that we are willing to pay a couple of $100 for just a small bottle of Chanel. And you know what? The secret of a good perfume is not the lilies or the rose petals. It's the urine that is in it. Part of the attraction of the smell is not the lilies and the rose petals. They put elements of urine in perfumes. We are very strongly attracted by that, even willing to pay quite large amounts of money for that. The subtle energy is not so very important, and certainly you don't have to memorize anything, you can always look it up, but the subtle energy that is responsible for the activation of all these related issues and definitely responsible for forms of excretion is, we call it apana prana. The color associated with Muladhara Chakra is red. Red district, you know the red district? Why did they choose the color red for the red district? It's Muladhara Chakra, raw sex. That is what the red district is about. But look around you. The most successful brands in the world use the color red. Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Marlboro, tobacco, cigarettes, Marlboro. More than quality, the success of a brand lies in the color that is being used. I always make jokes about McDonald's that I use those hamburger patties to resole my shoes when my shoes are worn out. Because you can enjoy to have some hamburgers, some fries and what have you, but in the end, quality-wise, it's not that great actually, and yet it is the biggest franchise in the world. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry spread out around the globe in every country, in every corner, generating huge profits. clear. Clear is that with the color red, they are appealing to your lower emotions and desires. And it is no surprise that McDonald's and Coca-Cola are very much attractive to kids. And it starts in this period between birth and the age of 7. Those brands know how it works. The marketing industry makes billions of dollars manipulating you without you even being aware of being manipulated into drawing your wallet and spending money. The element of fear is important matter. Yoga is often being likened to healing. Healing yoga is an often heard term. Also in terms of marketing, promotion, we offer healing yoga, which is often a little bit in line with traditional yoga. They call it healing yoga, yin yoga, or hatha yoga, but it is the way that we practice, standing still in silence as much as possible. What am I trying to get at here is that between the age of 0 and 7, stability is very important. Children who grow up lacking that stability, security, safety, continue often, while going into adulthood, to suffer from anxiety issues, fear issues, and distorted behavior. But nothing lost. If you have missed that important developmental stage and have become harmed by it, you can restore the stability in Muladhara Chakra and the related anxiety, fear issues by practicing yoga, establishing sattva, and then go through that developmental stage at a later age. That is the reason why yoga done correctly truly is healing. Not only in the moment that you become stronger and healthier, more energetic, also related to past developments having gone wrong. Now we have started to make the transition towards energy control. And we talked about the concept of the doubting Thomas. What is energy? We think we can't smell, hear, see, touch, or feel energy. But we are energy. Since the day that we were born, all our functions are governed by energy. So much so that we're not aware of it. Because from the day we were born, we have functioned like that, so we've never stood still to pay attention and actually become aware. Your homework will be to feel the energy in Muladhara Chakra. How do you do that? When you feel the need to go to the toilet. Since you were born, when you need to go to the toilet, you just go. You never think about what is happening, what causes your restlessness, what makes you stand up and walk to the restroom. You've never consciously went through the process. Your homework will be to actually, when you feel the urge to go to the toilet, to not go, but just close your eyes for a moment and try to feel what is happening. You will feel restlessness. And if you wait too long, that restlessness becomes unbearable. I see some of you nodding, so you recognize it, but you've never consciously paid attention. If you pay attention, you see that there is a huge amount of energy involved. It is that energy that causes the restlessness. It is the apana prana that keeps expanding, rajas occurs, to urge you into action. And that is normally what we do without giving it a second thought. But to lose our status of doubting Thomas, we use this approach to become believing Thomases, to start actually feeling, recognizing that there is energy, that all we have to do is change the way that we look at ourselves and the way that we function, because it does not only apply to Muladhara chakra, of course, it applies to all the chakras. If you pay attention, you can feel that all the chakras are related to activity which is accompanied by a whirl of energy. When you fall in love, or feel love, or compassion, or empathy, what do you feel? You never paid attention to it, but your chest is expanding. You feel a whirl of energy in your heart, around your heart. We've just never taken it seriously or paid attention to it, but it's there. And with that, you lose your status of doubting Thomas, and you start to see that everything is in fact energy. And when you accept that, the control of energy becomes a lot more easy to, first of all, accept that it is possible, but then to actually put into motion, to make it work. When there is no energy in Muladhara chakra, which is possible, many people are in fact lacking consciousness in the bottom of their body because of fear, traumatic fear, abuse in childhood, but also because of taboo, sexual taboo. When there is tamas in Muladhara chakra, lacking apana prana, there are all kinds of problems that can occur in your functioning. Then one of them is, of course, obstipation, gyonpi in Korean. Obstipation means that you can't go to the toilet. There are people who sometimes 3, 4, 5 days don't go to the toilet to pass stool, while normal is to pass stool at least once a day as part of your digestive process. If there is no energy, it doesn't function well. And as people can sweat profusely, triggered by excessive fear, anxiety, the opposite can also happen. There are people who are lacking so much apana prana in Muladhara chakra that even when they exercise hard, they barely sweat. And another issue is the need for a cesarean surgery, C-section, when the baby doesn't come out when it's time to be born. It's the same issue. And I will tell you something about this issue, because I always see that people who have had a baby already recognize what is happening in our societies. And it is not limited to any culture or nationality. It seems that women who have given birth always have a tendency to create fear in women who are pregnant of their first child. Anybody here with children? You have children? 1, 2? Anybody else with children? What often happens is that the woman who is pregnant for the first time is told by other women how terrible it is to give birth. The hours that it took to be in labor, and the pressure and possible pain and what have you. It may be true that it is not easy to give birth, but there is a devilish pleasure there in creating fear in women who are pregnant for the first time. And it causes those women to develop fear for the moment that the baby needs to come out. And when you are fearful of something, you withdraw your attention from it. From where? From the lower region of your body, where the energy needs to be generated to push the baby out, apana prana. There are therapies in which women, pregnant women, are very deliberately and consciously drawn towards their lower body for this purpose. That you put your hands on your belly, you close your eyes and you start talking to your baby, and you start to befriend yourself with the process of that baby coming into this world. The whole purpose of this is to allow a healthy dose of apana prana to be available there when it is actually needed. Out of fear, we have trouble not only with giving birth or going to the toilet, but sexual problems that many women and men are suffering from are the result of fear, which shuts down the energy in Muladhara Chakra and leads to all these malfunctions, basically. You can imagine, because also the excretion of all the hormones that are responsible for all the internal functions and even for our mental health and well-being, same as with all the other forms of excretion, if the hormones are not produced in proper amounts, we will have a lot of other internal problems as a result of that too. So create harmony, sattva, in Muladhara Chakra, and everything starts to function better. Your digestion gets better, sexuality becomes more healthy and balanced. Your sweat, believe it or not, but when there is harmony in Muladhara Chakra, your skin starts to actually smell nice and attractive. Ajita always jokingly said, yogis smell like roses. But what he meant is this: if there is relative sattva in you, and thus also in Muladhara Chakra, you have a pretty attractive body smell. You smell your own smell or you don't?
What if you smell bad?
You have some work to do. You have some work to do. Sattva. Good.
Ron, can I play a little Doubting Thomas for a second here? In regards to smell, I just know that like if you eat foods like garlic or onions or heavy spices, turmeric, ginger, you name it, like how would you differentiate like smells emitted by foods you eat versus the type of smell that you're talking about, because I can't imagine, I would have a hard time believing that if you consume those foods, in spite of your practice, like there's not, as far as I know, there's no magical thing that happens in your body that makes those things go away.
In my experience, there are people who eat lots of garlic and onions and what have you, and spices that still smell attractive. And it's also so that Dutch people, German people, they eat a lot of cabbage and what have you. That can also make you smell very bad in a very different way.
Sure.
And yet, those people can also smell like cabbage, but then relatively attractive. Even with garlic and onions, you can have that smell around you, but then being a pleasant or relatively pleasant smell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand.
Yeah, okay. I eat quite a lot of garlic and onions too.
Because I know, especially if you go, like you travel to a different country. I mean,
yes.
It's like people, different places have different smells, and
yes, absolutely.
And, you go to somebody else's house, you smell a different smell, and it just seems that sometimes you become accustomed to a smell to a certain point where it just like goes away.
You do.
I don't want to belabor the point.
But your remarks there also show how subconsciously we do pay a lot of attention to what we smell.
It has to be
when we enter a house, every house smells different. Every family smells different. And exactly, you go to another country, the country smells different. I found that if you pay attention in your memory, a lot of your deep memories, clear memories, are related to a smell. I remember very clearly the first time I came to Korea. I remember very clearly the smell of my Hapkido teacher, who ate a lot of garlic, raw garlic even, but had a pleasant smell, nevertheless. So yeah, pay attention to smell consciously, because it does have a huge influence on us. But we usually, because it's part of daily life since we were born, we are not actually paying attention to it. But it has a lot of information to give us about ourselves, about our surroundings, and the people that we interact with, and what have you. Muladhara chakra is very important. A country, a society that is stable, secure, safe, relatively harmonious, well organized, invariably is wealthy. People are thriving. When there is war, no organization, people fending for themselves to survive, people are driven by fear. People are infested by fear. And you see the total opposite picture there. Those countries are very, very poor. They cannot develop, they cannot evolve, they cannot grow. That is why peace is so important. That is why after the Second World War, the industrialized world has created not national bodies, but global bodies to try to spread peace, to try to avoid conflict, war. Can you see this? United Nations is such a body. NATO, although a military organization, is such a body. Europe, about 30 countries and surrounding territories, has been at war for hundreds and hundreds of years. Perpetual war. Then came the First World War, then came the Second World War, and then people said, enough with all this slaughter. And look what happened. There barely hasn't been war. There have been some small flare-ups like you had in the Balkans when Yugoslavia broke up, but that was of course a karma from the Soviet Union. But anyway, you had some small flare-ups, but the peace that has been there for the past 75 years has led to an enormous prosperity. Muladhara Chakra on an international scale. That is the huge importance and value of stability, of sattva. Another word for sattva is in fact peace. Peace is harmony, is a condition in which there is no conflict, where there is harmony, where there is stability. And human life and animal life too starts to thrive on this harmony. That is how I turned 2 wild dogs into very nice animals. People are adoring them. I go always to the riverside. There is a community of people who go there with their dogs, so every day they go there to play with their friends. And people say, well, among all the dogs here, they are the nicest behaving dogs of all. And that's just amazing. But I accomplished that by understanding the value of stability. I've been walking on eggshells for a year to prevent them from being confronted with surprises or shock, or every day the same routine, no surprises, never raise my voice or my hand or whatever. And you have to see them, they're so sweet. Very sensitive. And that will never go away, I think, especially in Babi. It's so sweet, just amazing. They'll never bite or fight. They never fight with other dogs. If other dogs attack them, they'd rather avoid them, evade them, than to fight back. It's just amazing that there are so many people there with dogs, designer dogs bought from a shop that are full of problems, behavioral problems, but also structural problems, genetic problems. These dogs, they are indestructible. They're mixed breed and super healthy, strong, and now also stable because of Muladhara Chakra. You know, the solution to children or animals showing distorted behavior, aggression or criminal behavior, the medicine, the cure is not punishment. It's love, it's stability, routine. Good. Questions? Let's have a short break.